we are ready to talk Auburn Tigers football on the Our Lads Football Network, and that means Bryan Matthews from Rivals is with us. Auburn.rivals.com. How's it going, Bryan?
It's going pretty good, man. It's been a wild few weeks, or I guess 4 weeks really, but here we are. Football season has ended for the most part, unless Auburn was to back into a bowl game at 5-7. Auburn's got a new head coach, and basketball's up and running.
Yeah, that's right, because that's Rivals. Part of that Rivals job is not just football. So the
That's right.
basketball. How is the basketball team looking right now?
7.
Oh,
Got a game Friday night against Colgate, I believe.
okay.
Very good defensive team, very good rebounding team. Need to pick it up on offense as we move forward in the season.
Are they ranked?
I think they're 15th,
Okay,
somewhere right
very
around
good.
there.
Do they have a good game coming up? We should keep an eye on.
Colgate Friday night at Auburn Arena,
That's a
and
good game.
it should be a fairly
Oh,
competitive
Colgate's
game.
like a top team in their conference.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl does a pretty good job of scheduling these non-conference teams that end up being, NCAA
Tournament
top two or
teams.
three. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he does.
All right. Let's talk football. And obviously, you're on because of the Hugh Freeze announcement. We went over the coaching candidates about a month ago. What did you think about the possibility? And when did you think it really became real that, hey, you know what? This is something that could actually happen?
Well, I thought it was going to be Lane Kiffin or Hugh Freeze from the start. Those were the two guys that were the most high-profile candidates in the search. I felt for four straight weeks. We got till Friday, and I thought Lane Kiffin was the guy. And I think Auburn insists that you was their top candidate, and he was the only guy offered. But I believe that Lane Kiffin turned down that opportunity Friday. Auburn quickly moved to Hugh Freeze, and I think they probably got some blowback there for some fans that were concerned about his past. So they took a little bit more time, but eventually moved on him Monday, and then the press conference, of course, yesterday.
Yeah, by the way, I think anybody that had common sense in college football knew what was going on when they saw the Liberty score against New Mexico
Yeah,
State.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
turned that game on, I was like, uh-oh, because
yeah,
there's no way that score is that score unless the players knew what was going on.
yeah,
So,
exactly. And Liberty beat Arkansas at Arkansas like 3 weeks earlier. So
yes,
yeah,
beat BYU. So that
yeah.
wasn't that was yeah, that was the first sign. I read a few things from some of the articles that you wrote. One of the things I noticed, and this is an obvious question, but you mentioned the off the field behavior. So for fans that aren't really up to speed on his track record off the field, what did you mean?
Well, you can go back to Ole Miss. I mean, his tenure there just blew up. Right around 2017, 2016, 17. He got into some NCAA recruiting violations, accused of paying players, and then the subsequent investigation, and then I guess, a lawsuit by the former coach there. How can I forget his name? But
Oh,
the
Houston Nut, you
loss,
mean?
yeah, Houston Nut, yes. It uncovered, his phone messages, and there were some phone calls to a escort service in Tampa, Florida, on there that really ultimately led to his final resignation or firing, whatever you want to call it, from Ole Miss. So that was blown up pretty quickly there. I mean, pretty badly. That was a major flame out. Um, and then for the past 4 years, he's been at Liberty, and everything had seemed to have been going pretty smooth at Liberty. But I guess it was in July of this year, he DM'd one of the young ladies that was involved in, I guess, a lawsuit. I think they were around 21 or so, or more than 20, about Liberty University mishandling sexual assault um, cases. And he didn't DM. Well, I'm not going to get into defending him, but the DM wasn't he sent a DM to this woman. It was not appropriate to do. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay. And but obviously Auburn checked it out, and they felt there was something that wasn't too important or,
Right.
or too poor of a judgment. Poor judgment, but not to the effect that he couldn't still be their head coach, obviously.
Right. That's exactly what it was. Right. They had to make a call there. Right. They had all the information from his really 30 years as a coach,
Yeah.
background stuff, and they had to make a call. There were some negatives on there, obviously, and you know, um, and I think they made that balanced against. Okay, this is a guy that has a reputation of being a great recruiter, and that's where Auburn has really, really lacked when it competes against Alabama's and Georgia's and Clemson's, etc. And he's also a guy who has a excuse me, a great offensive mind, puts up big numbers on the offensive side of the ball. So that's something that Auburn has desperately needed for a while now too. And then he's a guy that, under normal circumstances, he is very relatable, right? He can speak well. He can emote. He can emotionally connect to people, and you
Good
saw that.
communicator.
I think if you watched
Yeah.
the opening press conference. Now, you have to take that in respect to some people aren't going to listen to him right now. But if he wins and if he does not have any missteps off the field, I think most Auburn fans will come around to him and accept him and support him. But I don't want to put words in their mouths, right? They have every right to be upset, for whatever reasons, for the reasons they have.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right when you say, look, I'm not going to defend him, and I'm not going to defend him either. But the fact is that, like you said, it's their call. It's their money. I'm sure they know that there's a little bit of a risk, no question. But like you said, when you put in that much time into your career, and all right, here's your pros and here's your cons. I know today the environment today is so different that you do something silly, it could be in poor judgment and it gets blown up. But I'm actually glad and happy to see that, from what I know, from what we all know about his background, that to me, I think he deserves the shot. I don't think what he's done is, compared to what other people have done, should shut him out of this job. That's just my opinion.
Right. And he hasn't committed any violent acts that I'm aware of, so
There's
I don't want to defend
Sure.
him, but I just want to point that out. Right?
And I completely understand everybody who has a problem, and now it's up to Hugh to make sure that they're not right. So, and it takes time. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so you also wrote an article that was titled "Best Fit for Auburn," and that was basically a remark by the AD, John Cohen. Do you believe he's the best fit for the program?
Yeah, actually, I do, and that was based on the coaches available that I'm aware of. Right, there's probably some assistant at some school that's going to end up being the greatest coach in the world 10 years from now, right? That I don't know about,
Yeah.
But just taking into account the guys that were in this, yes, because he gives Auburn the potential to recruit at a much higher level and to compete with the Alabamas and Georgias. Not saying he will, okay, but the way he recruits, the way he was able to sign 5 stars at Ole Miss, that's what Auburn needs. And the stuff he got in trouble for at Ole Miss is now above board with the NIL collectives, right? He doesn't have to cheat to get those players anymore.
Great point. Yeah.
Auburn's built this big war chest of NIL money for the next coach. So he's coming in here ready to hit the ground running right away to help Auburn finish out this recruiting class. The signing day is December 21st, and to really boost this roster up in the transfer portal, which opens up December 5th.
Do you think that that's actually going to be a new way of thinking for athletic directors when they hire coaches that have past allegations against them, that they're going to say, well, okay, they've had these allegations, but that's just not going to be an issue anymore now, based on this NIL era we are in today. So, unless, of course, they're really drastic and every
Right.
time and every place he's been at, that kind of thing. But you think that might be a new way of thinking?
I do, and I've been around a long time. I've got some gray hairs, and I think that a lot of stuff that you was caught doing at Ole Miss was stuff that other schools have gotten away with, for many, many decades, right? I don't buy that, all these other schools are
they just got caught.
super, Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't look upon some of looking back and uh, taking a look back on the NCAA and some of the schools or coaches they got onto, and some of the rules are just idiotic now in hindsight, right? I mean, it's just
It is. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
give me a break.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think that changes things.
Okay. All right. Now, rivals synonymous with recruiting. So let's go there. Uh, and everybody, including me, I'm guilty of it as a homegrown New Jersey fan. Uh, Talking about what Rutgers needs to do with the transfer portal, and everybody's guilty of it. So, what's what are you reading that the fans are saying about what is it that they feel that they're hoping that the coach does in the transfer portal that can quicken the development of the program?
Well, if you look at Auburn's roster right now for 2023, it's probably as bad as I've seen it on paper in my 22 years covering the program. Um, I mean, it's pretty bad. I mean, I think you got to go back to uh, probably 1998 or 99, the first year Tuberville took over, to see a roster this bad. However, with the portal, you can change things quickly. And in conjunction with recruiting, they've got 13 commitments right now. I think they'll probably sign around 9 or 10 more, and they sort of set themselves up. They've got a couple of top prospects in Montgomery, James Smith, and Quay Rousseau, two like Rivals 100 top overall players that they've been on. They've got some guys that they feel like they can flip. They're committed to. They just flipped a kid from LSU. They got guys from Georgia and North Carolina that continue to visit Auburn. They feel like they got a chance to flip. And there's a really good pass rusher named Ruben Bain from Miami they feel pretty good about. So they can close out this recruiting class much stronger than it was. I think they're around 34th in the country, 35th right now in ratings, but potential to push that into a top 15 type class. We'll see.
And they
But in
should
the
be top
transfer
10 every
portal,
year under Hugh Freeze.
they're going to have to be, and maybe even higher to compete with Alabama and Georgia, which is the goal if you're Auburn, right? That's the only goal you have. And they have not been coming close to that recently. But in the portal, I mean, they've got to basically rebuild the offensive and defensive lines for next year, starters and backups in many ways. They got a few players come back here and there, but it's a rebuilding job. Same at linebacker. I think the quarterback position is going to be so interesting to watch because Robbie Ashford showed some things
Sure.
in the second half of
Yeah.
the season. Certainly not as polished a passer as he needs to be. But then you look at what Hugh Freeze did with Malik Willis, who transferred from
Yeah.
Auburn as basically, not a
A running
well-known
back, really.
guy, right, and turned him into, what many thought was going to be a first-round pick. He ended
Yeah.
up sliding to the third, but an incredible career that Malik Willis had at Liberty under Hugh Freeze. So, could he do something like that with Ashford? Quite
Why not?
possibly, yes. So that'll be interesting to watch. But this is a rebuilding project. But Hugh Freeze talked about this yesterday, and he said he thinks he can turn it over quickly, and that's because of the portal.
Okay, so has there been like a name, especially at quarterback, of any that the fans have been calling for? They go, oh, we got to get this guy. And I know there's probably 20 guys, especially over the last few days, of I'm coming out in the portal. Oh, let's get that guy. But is there a consensus out there that maybe a good fit?
It opens December 5th. I have not even looked at it yet.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you one name in the portal right now. I probably should. I need to get
Sure.
on that, right?
Okay.
But my focus has been 100% on this
Got
coaching
it.
search and everything else going on. But yeah, they're gonna go after offensive and defensive linemen, linebackers, possibly a quarterback. Definitely need help at receivers for sure. Those are going to be the main focus of their portaling. So
By the way, do they have a quarterback on the 23 recruiting class yet?
they got one, a kid out of Miami, who is I think teammates with Ruben Bain, if I'm not mistaken. Keon Jenkins is his name. I'm not sure if I pronounced that first name right, but a little quick guy who's had a really good senior year type.
Okay. Offensive coordinator. Now it's too early to tell because I read and went over his press conference notes about how he's thinking about maybe relinquishing those duties, which
Yeah,
I think makes a lot of sense. But he's got to find the right guy.
right.
So,
Well, and he didn't tell us, of course, these guys, but he said that he's gotten some text and interest from some really talented coordinators. And he said he got those texts and then went and watched and was like, wow, this guy's better than me in some respects, right? So I think he's really interested in doing that. And the reason he's doing that, I think, is the most important thing. It's because he understands that his job at head coaches at Auburn now is to go out there and recruit. And that's something that Gus Malzahn and Brian Harsin just never, ever really understood, never really took under their wing. And that's why guys like Kirby Smart and Nick Saban were able to have so much success against Auburn in recruiting because those guys get it. The head coach has got to be the leader there. So I think Auburn's finally got a guy that gets it in that regard.
Speaking of recruiting, a couple more questions before I let you go. The recruiters that are already in place, how does that work when you have a transition like this? You've seen them the last few transitions. So
yep.
Are there guys that are just, hey, they're always going to remain there because they know what they're doing, they're dialed in, and maybe they don't make a lot of money or they don't get all the publicity, but those guys are just guys that will always be a part of the Auburn recruiting program? Or does it change? Or is it like a 75 or 85% changeover in recruiting whenever a coach comes in?
Well, the one guy who's definitely retaining is Cadillac Williams.
Yes.
And he made that decision Monday night shortly after the hire, which is big.
Yeah.
He had to do that basically. I think there's a chance Zach Etheridge returns. He's Auburn's defensive back coach, former Auburn player, won a national championship with the team in 2010 as a captain. Okay. And if you look at Auburn's roster, right, the running backs and the D-backs are the two most strongest positions going forward because those two assistant coaches really did a bang-up job recruiting. So that says something about them, I think. It's interesting because for the coaches, right, they're all going to, talk to you and interview and stuff, but at the same time, their phone's ringing off the hook and they're, talking to all these other staffs and trying to set things up because they know nothing's guaranteed, right? That's sort of the life they're living right now. They're talking to all their buddies in the coaching field, looking at openings, interviewing at the same time, hoping they can remain in Auburn. It's changed a little bit now because staffs have grown so much. You've got these huge numbers, 15, 20, 25 staff members involved in recruiting and all this off the field stuff. Every single coach on Auburn's staff had an analyst underneath him. You got this whole personnel department they've started to build up, the whole recruiting and analyst part they've started to build up. So I don't know exactly what's going to take place with those guys because those guys have done a whole lot of lead work. Like they're the guys that have looked at all this G5 film and evaluated all these guys that could potentially enter the portal, right? So they're the guys that you need to sort of lean on to say, we got to jump on this guy as soon as he gets in the portal because everybody else is. And if we don't, we're going to miss out. So I would expect that he's going to keep a core group of those guys around no matter what. Yeah. And, if he needs to make changes for whatever reason
down the road,
6 months from now, a year from now, you can start processing through it. But I think you've got to sort of lean on those guys and trust they've done a good enough job over the past, 6 months or so, getting Auburn ready for this period in December.
What about defense? How's the defensive side of the ball look, coaching wise?
The big thing there is he's going to have a huge budget to go out and get whatever defensive coordinator he wants. Okay. So it's basically who he wants, who is interested. I don't think Auburn's going to get outbid on that by anybody. And if you look at it, they were prepared to pay Lane Kiffin, I think, close to $10 million a year, maybe a little bit more. They're paying Hugh Freeze $6.5 million over 6 years, 75% guaranteed. So you can see that discrepancy there, and they were willing to pay big money for a defensive coordinator along with Lane Kiffin. Oh. So that tells you how far they're willing to go.
So there's extra money there. Yes.
Yes. So I don't know who it's going to be. I know the Odom coach, former coach at Missouri. He's a defense coordinator at I think it's Barry Odom at Arkansas now, is a guy that Auburn will at least take a strong look at. The Mississippi State defensive coordinator, I don't know him, but I think he's one of those guys that analytics say are really, really good. I think he's a guy that we will look at, that Auburn will look at. So, but there's probably going to be many more here. And I do think they'll try to make a move fairly quickly because it's going to be important for guys in the portal and guys in recruiting to know who that DC is going to be.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll bring some coaches over from Liberty, but what their roles are going to be, I guess we'll find out soon enough. Fan reaction. How are the fans taking to this hire in general?
I'd say mixed. I think it's very fair to say that it's hard to say the percentage, right? Because sometimes the people who are upset about it can
Change their minds.
be more, and also can be a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? You just notice them more because they're more outspoken about it, right? They stand out more in some way.
The outspoken
But I
minority
was,
sometimes too.
yeah, and again, I did not want to, like downplay
Sure.
their that they have
All
legitimate
valuable.
reasons to be
Yes.
upset about it,
Yes.
right? But I would say that the majority of fans, in my opinion, support him. And I think after his press conference yesterday, it was streamed live. I think a lot of people got to watch that, and I think he probably gained some more support after that. And I think it's just going to be a process with everybody else, right? Can he kick tail in December and really, up this town acquisition, right? Can he go into next fall and win? And can he keep from slipping up? I think if he can do those things, then I think the majority of fans then will certainly get behind him.
So it does sound like it's not a home run hire, but it's a hire that it's just hey, we'll wait and see, which
Potential to be, how about potential to
yeah,
be a home run hire? We'll see.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's good because sometimes you hire someone and the fan base is like, I mean, no matter how, unless of course you win a national championship, but sometimes even you win a national championship, they're not happy. There are some guys that they
Right.
just never are going to give the thumbs up for. But Hugh definitely is a guy that at least is going to be able to earn their backing if he does the right job, both on and off the field.
Yes.
So rivals right now, this is a busy time for you, I would guess, because again, like you mentioned, December 5th and everything. So a lot of fans out there who may not be subscribers at rivals, this is a perfect time for them to get on board, isn't it?
It really is. December has turned into one of the busiest months in college football coverage, right? With recruiting and the portal and everything. It's just all focused in December now. So yeah, it is a great time to sign up at auburnsports.com. And of course, basketball is going
Yeah.
on, right? And Auburn's very, very good again, and all that. And you can also follow me on Twitter at bmatau.
Bryan, is there any chance they can go bowling based on their APR score?
There actually is. I think, they're 5-7. I think they're number 2 or 3
Oh,
of the schools that could get
okay.
a bid, depending on what happens with
Buffalo?
another game. I think
Buffalo
I
needs a
think that's
win.
right. Yeah. Yes. I think if Buffalo loses, then Auburn's like second or third in that, and it just depends what other schools do. And I'm not sure Auburn would accept that bid.
Okay.
Um, it wouldn't be a thing that a 5-7 Auburn team would normally do, right? It would be acceptable bid no matter what. But I think under the circumstances, the way it finished with Cadillac, I think what they're going to do is sort of internally talk to players and sort of get a feel for would they have enough guys interested in playing this bowl game, and would they be able to field a competitive team or not, and how are they going to handle coaching up and going through practice when this Hugh Freeze and the staff needs to be out there
That's true.
recruiting and doing
Yeah.
all that. So my gut feeling is there's a very slim chance they'll accept a bowl bid, but I think it's still a possibility.
Bryan, great job as always. I know it's busy, so thanks for taking your time to talk to us. And we will talk to you again, unless something crazy happens. We'll talk to you again sometime in 2023. So Happy New
That's
Year,
great.
Merry Christmas,
Yeah,
and all
and
that.
happy holidays to everybody out there. I appreciate that. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bryan.